This is the Unstarving Musicians Podcast. I'm your host, Rabanzo. This podcast features conversations with me and indie music artists. Conversations intended to help other indie musicians be better at marketing, business, the creative process, and all the other things that empower us to do more of what we love. Make music. Hey there, loyal listeners. Would you like to help other independent musicians find this podcast? Subscribe on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast service. It really helps. Would you like to support the podcast? Join the Unstarving Musician community. Just go to unstarvingmusician.com and join right there on the homepage. If you're an independent musician, you'll be glad you joined because I share tips and lessons you can use in your music journey. And this isn't just coming from me and my years of experience as a gigging musician. It also comes from the hundreds of other musicians and songwriters I've talked to as part of the Unstarving Musician Project, including those I've interviewed for this podcast. And it's all free, just for being part of the community. Another way to support the podcast is to pick up a copy of the Unstarving Musician's Guide to Getting Paid Gigs, how to get booked and paid what you're worth over and over again. You can get your very own paperback or Kindle version on Amazon, and you can find it just about anywhere fine ebooks are sold. Have you heard of Bandzoogle? They've come up on this podcast several times. Many of my guests use it to power their artist website. You may have heard me say in recent episodes that I was contemplating the launch of a subscription-based service of my own. Well, you know what? These guys have it figured out already. I know because I've had the grand tour. I recently signed up for an account too. You'll see my artist website powered by Bandzoogle soon. I just have to untangle it from unstarvingmusician.com. It's complicated, trust me. Bandzoogle's not complicated. From garage bands to Grammy winners, Bandzoogle powers websites for thousands of musicians around the world. Their simple step-by-step system will get you online fast. Dozens of mobile-friendly templates will help you customize your design and content. It's built for musicians by musicians. Bandzoogle has all the features you need for your website and your EPK already built in, including a merch and download store to sell music and merch commission-free right on your website. You can use the tour calendar to promote your shows and sell tickets commission-free, mailing list tools to grow your fan list and send professional newsletters, integrations to pull in content from all of your online services, including Twitter, Instagram, and SoundCloud, and live support from their musician-friendly team 7 days a week. Plans start at just $8.29 a month, which includes hosting and your own free custom domain name. Go to bandzoogle.com to start your 30-day free trial, and be sure to use the promo code RABONZO to get 15% off the first year of any subscription. That's bandzoogle.com, promo code RABONZO to build your website today. In this episode, I chat with three-time guest Bree Noble. She's a musician and songwriter, and I see her mostly as an educator and a source of inspiration. She's about to host the second annual Profitable Musician Summit, or Profitable Musician Summit 2019. She recently published a book called The Musician's Profit Path. Her Women of Substance podcast is at 940 episodes, and she's also host-creator of the Female Entrepreneur Musician podcast. We talk about the upcoming event, that Profitable Musician Summit 2019, and its opening party. Also about stuff I just needed to know, such as tracking finances with apps, Spotify playlists, questions she discusses on her Female Entrepreneur podcast, and more. So without further ado, here is me and Bree. Okay, psych, before we get to the interview, on a production note as a courtesy to you, the listener, apologies for the tropical bird sounds you'll hear throughout the conversation. As long as I've been podcasting, you'd think I'd know better than to leave the windows open while I record, no matter how nice the weather is outside. And thank you, Bree, for being such a good sport about it. Okay, now on with the interview. I really appreciate you coming back on the show, and I feel lucky that I saw your email, but I suspect that you would have pinged me a couple of times until I responded, because I'm on your list, Bree, and I get some cool emails. I confess I don't get to all of them, but I just happened to open that one, and I'm sure it was the subject line that did it, and I was happy for you because you're about to do, is it the second annual Profitable Musician Summit?
It is the second annual, the 2019 version.
Yeah, I'm really happy for you. I gather that means the first one went well. I know when we talked after the first one happened, that it went well, and I know that you're going to tell me. I'm guessing that you have bigger and better plans for it for the 2019 version, which we're going to talk about. And the opening party, at the time of our recording here I go, future me talking. I like to say future me. I don't know if I'm really future me when I say this, but so we're recording on the 15th of March, and your episode's going to publish on the 12th of April, but your opening party is
April 22nd.
April 22nd. That is going to be
Monday,
cool.
April 22nd at 8 p.m. Eastern.
Tell me about the opening party, and then let's get into what's new, what's going to be new with the summit.
Absolutely. So the opening party is really fun because we bring on some different guests. Sometimes, some of the speakers that are in the summit to just kind of get a little bit more personal perspective from them. Last year, we had a few of our speakers that really just talked about kind of because the whole Profitable Musician Summit is about making money as musicians. And so we had some speakers come on and talk about how they had money blocks and how they had mindset issues on even being able to be profitable as a musician. So that was a really popular part. And then we have a ton of giveaways, which is super fun because I get to give stuff away live. We use like a random number generator, and we give away stuff from all of our speakers. So we gave away things like a songwriting session with one of our speakers, people's books, and mini courses that would normally cost like $100. Just really cool giveaways that make it super fun and exciting to be there live because you might be the one that's going to win. So that's my favorite part about the opening party. It's a little bit of it's a logistic craziness for me because we were like speakers coming in and out, and we were doing giveaways in between. But actually, it went so much better than I thought it would. It was pretty seamless, so it was really fun too, just to be live for that time and get people all pumped up for what the summit's going to be about.
And how does one get involved in the opening party? Is it just a matter of registering for the summit?
Yes.
Special?
So if you register for the summit, then of course we'll tell you when it is and how to show up. And we're playing with maybe we usually use Zoom to broadcast live on Facebook Live. We may have let people come onto the Zoom call as well, or go on Facebook Live. If for whatever reason they don't like Facebook Live, they can just be kind of live inside of the webinar that we have running, where we'll have a chat so people can ask questions of the speakers, and we'll celebrate with them when they're the winners and that kind of stuff. So it's a really fun time. And so if you can't join us on the Zoom call, you can definitely come on to Facebook Live, and it'll be broadcast on our page and inside of our private group for the summit too.
Very nice. And for those of you listening, we talked about the first annual Profitable Musician Summit back in episode 48 on this podcast, myself and Bree. And I confess I'm one of those people who, I don't know how many of us there are, but I stopped putting episode numbers where I can put episode numbers when I publish these. But if you go to unstarvingmusician.com/podcast, there's an episode number. But you can also just go to that page and search for Bree Noble, and you'll see episode 48, where we talked about the first one, so you can hear what we discussed on that episode. I think it would be worth a quick listen. And let's do that. Let's talk about the Profitable Musician Summit 2019, and I guess let's talk about it anew, and for those who didn't know about it last year, and also what's different about it? Why are you doing it again?
Oh, that's a good question. When you finish something as monumental as a 10-day summit, at the end, you're just like, how can I possibly do this again? It is so overwhelming and draining. And is there anything new to say? And after you recover for a month, then you're like, there's so much more to say, and I can't not do it again. It was so fun and successful. So, last year we focused on streams of income. So that was kind of the side of profit that we focused on last year we had 40 speakers talking about 33 different streams of income that musicians could employ, because I really believe musicians need to diversify their income portfolio in order to be a, have a really solid money-making career in 2019. So this year, it's like, what can we do, that is a little different from that? And so I wanted to look at both sides of the profit equation. I wanted to look at both increasing income and cutting expenses, because I think what happens with musicians is they're so focused on income, and then it's just really easy to hemorrhage money along the way without realizing it. And then you get to the end of the year and you do your taxes and you're like, oh my gosh, I made $500. When I take out all the money I spent on instruments, or all the money I spent on a tour, or, all this extra money that I spent on this album that I didn't think I was going to have to spend, that kind of stuff. So I wanted to, and me being an accountant, I have an accounting background. I was a director of finance at an opera company. So, and let me tell you, opera companies, it's really easy to overspend. So I definitely am very attuned to that tendency to overspend, or just not want to look at the expense side and not want to face up to where you are accounting wise. Because a lot of times musicians, we want to focus on writing and we want to focus on recording and performing, and we don't want to have to go in and reconcile our bank, or put things in QuickBooks and stuff. So I wanted to provide some really practical sessions about that. How can we set ourselves up to take as many tax deductions as possible so we can save as much money there and keep more of our money? How can we be able to do our accounting that we need to do as a business owner, but make it super easy and seamless and do it in like 15 minutes a week, that kind of stuff. The stuff we have to do, but we don't want to do, let's make it easier for them. So that's kind of the approach that I took this year of, instead of just income streams, we're going to make you a full-fledged CEO of your musician business. And we're going to make you confident in that role and want to step in to that role as the entrepreneur and owner of your business.
That's great. So, what a great topic. I have to ask, there are a lot of musicians and non-musicians, small business owners. I do consider them, they are very much the same. I mean, musicians are small business owners if they're independent artists, but non-music related small business owners who don't pay attention to the expenses side of things, or just, they want to do their art or their service. For musicians, what is your number one advice to shortcut, to make it easier for yourself to be attuned to the expenses side until you maybe get more serious, or have to get more serious and have a bookkeeper or an accountant or CPA? What's the best number one thing they can do just to start getting attuned if they're just not?
I would say setting up systems so you can do it on the fly and it doesn't feel hard. It's just automatic. So there's so many great apps that can make it really easy for you while you're on tour to keep track of what you need to keep track of. I think what happens is, we'll go on like a little mini tour for a weekend or for a week, and then we won't do any of that stuff. And we'll come back and we'll be like, okay, I'll just reconcile it when I get home. And then you get home and then you feel overwhelmed. Like you feel this crushing weight of like, I know I need to do that, but, instead we'll, do different stuff. We'll get involved in, writing another song, or, networking with people you were with on tour. And those are all really good things, but we'll avoid doing the reconciliation. And then pretty soon it's the end of the year. And then you just feel completely crushed by it because you never reconciled any of it. And it would take you days and days. And then you just want to hide in a closet. So if you just take a little bit of time to think out like, what systems can I set up do I want to use Bandzoogle or MerchCat or something like that to keep track of my inventory? And that's something you can do with an iPad or a computer or a phone, while you're on tour, and literally take 5 minutes at the end of every show to do that. Then you don't have to worry about it later.
Yeah.
And same thing with like mileage and, tracking, any receipts that you spend on tour. Just get one of those apps. And some of our speakers in the summit talk about ones that they like, apps that will keep your receipts for you, or you can even just take pictures with your phone. Like if you just have a system for this stuff, then you will actually do it and you won't avoid it.
That's a good start. So I'm a long-time Expensify user. It's an app. And I'm guessing that there are so many new ones now. It's a great app, but I'm guessing that there are newer ones that are more, the design of which are more conducive to the musician life. But maybe not, I don't know. But I've been a long-time Expensify user, so that's one you can check out. I heard of some new ones I don't have in front of me. I heard of some new ones this week, though. Do you have a favorite one for, say, like receipt or expense tracking?
I don't, because right now I'm not touring, so I don't have to worry about that stuff. But I do know that some of our speakers inside the summit mention ones that they like. And even if it's like, I just take a picture with my phone, someone even mentioned that, like, that just making sure that you have that, because receipts, they degrade, you lose them. Hopefully you don't lose them. You try to keep them, but at least if you have a picture, that will protect you for, tax purposes. And it will also make sure that you're keeping a record. So just keep an album in your pictures on your phone of all your receipts. And at least that is one step toward, the right direction.
Yeah, and the beautiful thing about these apps is, like with Expensify, again, it's kind of I saw 3 new ones this week. I'm like, maybe I should check those out. But, I can snap photos of the receipts. I can categorize them, put them in an expense report for, say, a tour or just my annual expenses. I can track mileage. I believe I can track no, I have a different app for mileage, but there is some sort of mileage app in there. Anyway, yeah, that's a great suggestion, and an easy thing to tackle first if you're bad at that particular part.
Yeah, and I want to be sure that people know, like, this entire summit is not about expense tracking and taxes and boring stuff like that. Okay, we have that in there because I feel it's important. And I've brought in experts on those things that aren't even necessarily in the music industry. Some of them are, and some of them aren't. Mm-hmm. They're just work with small businesses or women. But we have all kinds of really great sexy topics too, like, how to make more from each fan that you have, or, how to create your breakthrough record so you can make more money with your new albums. And, we've got like just tons of really great like marketing and, how to make more money from your email list, like all those kinds of things that you would expect from a summit like this. But I'm also throwing in the things that maybe you don't want, but I know that you need. Sure. And hopefully people will take advantage of those as well.
Do you still run into a lot or many artists who are not doing as good a job as they could or should with their email list?
Oh, yeah. So one of our speakers is Cheryl B. Englehart, and I actually just did a workshop with her. And, she did some polls along the way. And I'd definitely say most people said, like, I have an email list, but I don't engage it. I'm overwhelmed by the idea of it. And some people were like, I'm not sure why I need one. Does this really make me money? That kind of stuff. So absolutely, some people have been seduced by the idea that nobody reads email anymore and email is dead. And I don't believe that at all. Obviously, you just told me you read my email. So I know that people read emails, right? So it's not something you're going to get rid of because you have a lot of official things that you need to respond through. Like, it would be like saying, I'm going to take down my mailbox, in my yard. Like, nobody does that because you still need to receive some things by mail. And same thing with email. So, that's a big one. And I'm really glad Cheryl is on the summit because that's something that a lot of artists are not utilizing to its fullest potential.
Yeah, I asked because I run into this too. Well, cool. I'm glad that that's a great topic. And then is the formula, and I don't think this is a bad thing if your answer is yes, is the formula for this year's summit pretty much the same as last year's, or did you already decide you got to shake it up some and do it differently?
I mean, I'd say it's pretty much the same because people loved that format. They loved, we're doing anywhere from 3 to 5 speakers a day for the 10 days. And, they get 48 hours access to those for free, so they can totally binge watch everything if they want.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, we've got, the option to grab the whole thing at a very, very reasonable price, considering the speakers that we have. Some of them are like, thousands of dollars to, consult one-on-one with artists, or, their courses are at least $1,000 each, so you're getting really high quality. I would say we've got the same formula as last year with even better, more high profile, in-demand speakers, more of a variety of, obviously, topics under the Profit umbrella. But, overall, the summit format is the same, and it's, we've got a Facebook group. People loved being in there, being able to talk about the sessions and stuff. And some of our speakers were in there actually responding personally to questions people had. And so we're definitely doing that again.
On Facebook groups, on the Facebook group, I'm happy to hear that people like it so much. I am not crazy about them personally. I think I'm in a minority. Maybe I'm not. And I'm just curious if there's ever been discussion at your camp for doing your own forum, or if just Facebook is too easy and everyone's there. So no.
I mean, I think that's the answer. I mean, you're talking to somebody that has a Facebook group for female musicians with over 3,500 people. So I believe in Facebook groups. People utilize it all the time. It's to the point in that group where I have a community manager that's in there, several hours a week helping them. So it's definitely, for the right audience, Facebook groups are awesome. And for the summit, it's only a 10-day, or it's a pop-up group for the summit.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like they're going to spend their life there. But it, like you said, it's where people are.
Yeah.
It's easy for them to be, and for people to go log into another forum, I just think is too much of a barrier.
Sure. Yeah, I get it.
They might do it the first day or two, and then they will forget.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly easy to go to, unless you just are one of those people who detests Facebook, and a lot of us do and are still there. But yeah, I can see that. Do you ever? I'm a little off topic, and forgive me, but do you ever?
That's okay.
Do you give much thought to a contingency lest Facebook do something weird that completely disrupts your ability to use those groups? Like, okay, what's Plan B for?
Oh yeah, I mean that's why I'm trying to get people, as many people onto my email list as possible. Because absolutely, I mean, just the other day, Facebook was really down for a while on Wednesday, and it was super frustrating. But I don't think that Facebook is suddenly going to delete my group, but if it happened, I've been putting in contingency plans all along the way to get people over to my email list, because I do obviously want to be able to continue to communicate with them.
Yeah, smart, of course. I wanted others to think about that, and this is why I asked the question, and also was curious to hear if you had some specialized strategy. But you know what, you have the obvious contingency and just ongoing thing of driving people to your site and your email list, which is fantastic. So something else is, a couple of other things big have happened for you since we last spoke on the podcast, and that is you published a new book, and I'm going to say the whole title. I have it right here in front of me. I love subtitles too, and that way I can just feel everyone can feel and how it resonates. But it's The Musician's Profit Path, the 5-stage blueprint to create massive growth in your fan base and sustainable income for your music career. It's nice. And it's available on Amazon.
That's it. It is on Amazon, and it's exciting to be an author. Like, I never thought I'd be an author, except of songs, but but it was a really fun process. It was a really labor intensive process, but I'm glad it's out there now because I just think that it's information that musicians need, so they don't feel so overwhelmed by the process of growing their career. They have more of a step-by-step blueprint of what they should be doing and when, and mostly so they don't get sidetracked and distracted by all these shiny objects that they see other musicians doing. I want them to stay focused so they can actually move forward, because I see so many people paralyzed by all the choices and all the strategies. And so a lot of times they're like, they go one direction for a little bit, and then they're like, oh, you know what, I should be doing this other thing. It looks more successful, or I see this other person doing it. And then they're just kind of like spinning in circles. So this will help them actually make progress, which is what I really want to see for musicians.
That's awesome. I got to make sure it is, I told you before we hit the real record button, that I'm pretty sure it is in my library. So it's only on Kindle right now, or is there a print version?
No, the paperback is out. It took a little extra effort and love and formatting, but I finally got the paperback out. It's been out a few weeks, and it's been a great response. Some people, I actually have, at the end of every section, I have a checklist that you can actually check off. So I think some people just really like to highlight the paperback. They like to actually check it off as they finish up each section and each step of the blueprint, so they can be like, just that feeling of checking things off a list is so awesome. And you can't do that with a Kindle. So if you like doing that, if you like reading in places where you don't have your device, then get the paperback, because it's not a super long read. I think it's 115 pages or something like that. But it's basically a manual. And I tell people at the beginning of the book, like, this is how to use this book. Suggest you read through the whole thing, or at least skim it, to get an idea of what's ahead of you and where you're going. But then go back to the stage that you're in right now, which I help you determine what stage you're in, and go through and do the steps one at a time and check them off. And then go on to the next one. Don't get distracted by, I need to do these things in stage 4, even though I'm in stage 2.
Yeah, cool. Do you think you'll do an audio version of any type, whether it's on Audible or elsewhere?
I've thought of that. I'm not sure it's the right kind of book for Audible, because it's more like a manual, it's tactic oriented, and you shouldn't be, like I said, you should read the whole thing through, but more like a skimming. So I'm not sure that audiobook would be the right way to go with this one. I've definitely thought about it because I love audiobooks, but I think as of now, I'm not going to go that direction. If they want an audio version, they can come to my free masterclass at musiciansprofitpath.com, and they can, I go through the whole thing on a webinar. So that's probably maybe my audio version.
Yeah, cool. Is that, do you do that on Teachable as well? I know that's sort of a not... Well, you know what? There's probably some musicians listening that want to do all this stuff, so these are good questions.
So I love Teachable, and that's what I actually use for my academy. So all the academy members, the Female Musician Academy members, they have a Teachable site, and all the training is in there. But just for the masterclass itself, like, it's just available for anyone that wants to go through it. It's on EverWebinar, so they just go and register, and they can pick a time to go through the masterclass.
Is this your first book?
It is my first book.
Oh, awesome. Congratulations.
When you get done with the book, you're like, my first book and my last book. It's so much work. But then later, I know I'll be like, okay, I have another book in me.
Yeah.
Probably a book about productivity and goal setting and stuff like that. But maybe not till next year.
I think I published my book in 2016, and I've done like a ebook, slightly revised version, but I just signed myself up with a couple of entrepreneur friends for a mastermind group. They're both on they're on a similar trajectory of wanting to start planning a launch for their books. And I believe both of them have already published. And I told them, I don't even know if during this mastermind we do, I'll be writing my next book, but I would love to do a second edition of the one I have. But yeah, to your point, you write one, and I definitely, I set myself up to do more than one, but all the podcast and other things have I've let things get in my way, but that's cool. Congratulations. Wow, something I beat Bree Noble to. This is amazing. I actually published before she did. That's great. Now if I can just get my second book before you get yours, that would be mine.
Oh, man, there's your motivation.
Yeah.
The race is on.
Yeah, that's great. So you did yours under the new, I think you probably did yours entirely under the new Kindle Direct Publishing where they moved from Create Space.
Yes.
Yeah, that's cool. I see I have to face all that. I moved my stuff over, but now I feel like I'm going to be learning something new, which is, I don't know, I should just hire someone to help me with that one.
Well, I'll tell you, the creating the cover part is different because I had my cover created by my designer, and then I went to go put it in there, and it's like, oh, this is not the right aspect ratio for what they need and all that stuff. So I had to get that reformatted. I think it had just switched over, within like a month of when I had to put it in there.
So did they change it on you from when you started, what you thought you needed, and then when it switched over to?
No, I think it was just that my designer was used to Create Space, so she gave me what she thought I needed.
Yeah. It's her fault.
Yep. No, just kidding.
Well, and let's see. Other cool things. 511 episodes, if not 12, of Women of Substance radio podcast. Sorry, I don't know. That's probably not exactly what you call it, but I had to say both. But 511 episodes of the podcast. That's pretty amazing.
Did you say 511? No, I'm on 940.
Dang. Okay, well, hold on. Let me I have to look and
see.
If
it says something on my website, I probably just haven't updated it. But if you go to wospodcast.com, it will show you the most recent episode.
Oh, I know what I looked at. Oh, and it's probably just the first thing that came up. I went to YouTube. It says listen on YouTube. And I'm like, just assuming I'm looking at the latest episode, which I don't know why. I'm not sure why it's showing me that one. So how many episodes?
940 today.
That is amazing. Congratulations. We were just talking. When we started our call this morning, I was telling you, I need to make plans for my 100th episode. But that's really cool. I know we talked about this a little bit in our prior conversation. And by the way, congratulations for being the second artist and educator to be on this podcast 3 times now. You and Mike Dawson, who I was talking about for the 100th episode.
Gosh, I forgot it had been 3 times. I forgot we had one, and then we did one about the summit, and now here we are again a year later.
Yeah, I know. Well, when you contacted me sometime after, I'm like, oh, how's going to be the 3rd time? That's cool. And then today I was like, is this going to be the 3rd time? So I'd forgotten. But yeah, that's cool. I mean, it's cool for me, and I don't know if you have someone helping you these days, like a producer or co-producer that helps you ferret out or line up guests, or if they're kind of, I would imagine that closing in on 1,000 episodes, they're coming to you a little bit faster than they did one day, once upon a time, which is happening to me. But however, as you know, or can at least recall, if there was a time, but there isn't anymore, that getting quality guests is, it takes time and effort. And I don't. I avoid asking people to come on again for the sake of plugging in a guest because out of I need a guest. So I guess I'm trying to say there's a lot of value in your being here a 3rd time, and
well, thank you. Yeah. I appreciate that, and I mean it's true. I mean, with Women of Substance, that's a music podcast, like where we play music. So we have a review board process for that. And that's like all set in place, which is great. And I get tons of submissions. So I don't have to worry about looking for music. And then for the FEM podcast, it's definitely true that once you establish yourself, people are contacting you all the time. But on the other hand, there are a lot of people that aren't a good fit. I get people who don't like pay attention, female entrepreneur, musician, are they not looking at that? I get female entrepreneurs, somebody's pitching for them and they're contacting me all the time. Or same thing with Women of Substance. Like they think, oh, my client is a woman of substance. They don't look at it to see, oh, it's a music podcast. And so I'm constantly getting people that are like, oh, my client wrote this book and, about, I don't know, some self-help thing. And I just write back to them and say, you might want to check before you pitch. This is a music podcast.
Yeah, you desperate publicist.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm just kind of irritated by that because that person is paying this person to get them, podcast gigs, and they're not doing the research.
It's like our mutual friend D. Grant Smith would say, read and know something about the person you're contacting.
Oh my gosh,
Pretend like you care.
And every time that Dee and I get on this subject, we can just go on a rant because of that. Because we both get a lot of that all the time. Because he has a radio show, and I have, I had an online radio station, and now it's a music podcast, and so we just get publicists contacting us like crazy, and so many bad, communications that are just all about what's in it for them and not what's in it for us,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Newbies, I guess, or but that's cool. So closing in on 1,000 episodes and having done almost 950 already, what, if anything, news in the works for the podcast? Or are you just like, I can't even think about that, I got to focus on the sun?
Yeah, Women of Substance, because it's a music, we're playing music from indie artists. So it's pretty much the same format every time. And people love it. Like, people tune in. It's just like, people listen to, train tracks on Sirius XM, or they listen to the top 40 or whatever. They're expecting a certain thing. And so we have this format. We tell a little bit about each artist. We play their music. And we play 10 artists an episode in general. We have a few series that are theme based. We each had the Love Songs for Valentine's, which is super popular, and we're coming up on the celebrating motherhood for Mother's Day. So we have those kinds of things that come up throughout the year. But one thing we have done is when we do the series, I've started creating a Spotify playlist for that. So not for the regular episodes, but for the series. We had 120 songs or whatever on the Love Song series, and they're all love songs. So why not put them all on one playlist that people can listen to and enjoy? And so that's been really fun and popular because the artists like it. They get more plays on Spotify. They can promote it in different ways besides, if people that are their fans, they're not used to podcasts, they might be used to Spotify.
You probably know more about playlists than I do. I can't remember on Spotify. Can you, if I wanted to create a themed playlist for the Unstarving Musicians podcast, can I invite guests of the podcast to submit, say, love songs or whatever? I seem to recall you can have a collaborator, but I don't know if it can be an open contribution thing.
You can make a collaborative list. I don't do it that way because it leaves it up to them to do it, and a lot of times they don't know how. So I just go out and I ask for their Spotify link when they come on the podcast just so I can find them. Mm-hmm. But usually I just go and search for their song and I find them all and add them all to a playlist, But you can create a collaborative playlist, and I've been on those too. And those can be kind of fun, but it's a little bit weird when you have multiple people in control. I think it's always better to have one person as the master admin for something.
Sure. In my head, I was thinking, how can I make it easy? But I can see that I've never even asked that question. But I'll find people, but asking them to submit their Spotify link just to kind of make sure I have it.
Right. Yeah. What you can do is just make that part of your intake form for guests. And then if you decide you want to use it later, I mean, their Spotify link doesn't change.
Yeah.
So you can always go find them.
Yeah. And I love, I was going to mention something for kind of a bit for my own benefit, but hopefully for musicians who are listening who either podcast already or think maybe they will in the future, but because we were talking about guests, and I really need to put together I forget what you called it, like a submission, something.
It's like a Google Doc or something that people can submit. I mean, not a Google Doc, a Google form.
Yeah, or just an announce here on the podcast, which I'm doing right now. If you're listening, if you're an independent artist, I'll tell you what you can do right now is just go to unstarvingmusician.com and scroll to the bottom of the page, and there's a contact form and my contact information there. Let me know you're interested and send me links to your stuff. And please know not everybody's a fit at a given point in time, but maybe they are later. And I appreciate your submissions regardless. But you might be the perfect fit.
You could set up a Google form or a type form and just link it to something like unstarvingartist.com/guest or something like that, and tell people to go there, and then they could just fill out the intake form.
Yeah. I will do that, and then I'll erase the part I just said.
There you go.
Do you ever talk to something else I thought I wanted to ask before we started talking, but you do have an interview podcast, right? Do I remember that? I
do.
Right?
Female entrepreneur musician,
and
yeah.
How frequently does that publish?
It was publishing once a week. I actually took a break at the end of the year, probably because I was so overloaded with my book. And I also, felt like I want to save up my interview mojo for the great interviews on the summit. So I stopped publishing that on a weekly basis. But generally what I'm going to be doing is publishing a little bit more teaching things, like short teaching episodes, and they'll probably also be on YouTube, that kind of thing.
And those will be solo, just you, or that will be with a guest also?
I think it might be a mix, but seriously though, we have 183 episodes or something up there. So it's like people have so much that they haven't even gone through yet that's already there. So I haven't even had people going, hey, how come you don't have any new episodes? Because the way our website is organized, they can just go on there and be like, what do I want to learn about under the podcast, and just choose, income streams or house concerts or whatever. And it takes them to all the relevant episodes. So it's almost like they don't realize that we haven't published for a few months.
That's cool. I know, I always, I know the reality is that my listeners aren't necessarily chomping at the bit for the Friday morning alert from whatever their podcatcher is,
right?
For the next episode. I'm sure there's a few out there, but I get hung up on the Hell or High Water. This weekly episode's coming out. So, and
I got that way too, and finally I just had to get over it. It's like I'm putting my own extreme expectations on myself, and I can only do so many things in life, and I need to, focus on the things that I think are going to be the most beneficial. And for me right now, it's the summit. So I definitely had to make a choice.
Yeah, I need to find out from my publisher if I can go back and seasonalize my my first one, because for me, I don't know if you made your female entrepreneur musician, right? I don't know if you made that a seasonal podcast.
I didn't.
Okay, which kind of makes it natural to make a break.
2015, which I don't even think people were doing seasons in 2015.
That's probably right. And I mean, well, I guess it depends on the platform, right? Not everybody even acknowledges those, but if you do it that way.
iTunes wasn't really set up for that back then. Yeah, they are now.
Yeah. Anyway, for me, it kind of gives a natural reason to do a break. But I didn't do that with the Unstarving Musician. Maybe I'll see if I can what do you call it?
Yep.
A bulk change them so that it's season 1. But yeah, that's cool. Why did I ask that question? I don't know. It's gone. Do you ever ask? Oh, I know why. Because it was related to these questions. I was curious to know if you ever talked about it with with your female entrepreneur musician podcast guests. Do you ever ask about? Let me find a topic here. Hold on, I'm looking at a few, and we're getting close to our time. Do you talk about things like music release strategies?
I do, but I've definitely talked about that on the podcast, and I definitely talk to when I have guests about how they did it. Whether they're using crowdfunding or, whether they're using Spotify pre-save or, something like that to really draw attention to their release. But I think it's a really important subject, especially now. We definitely talk about needing to make as much to do about anything you release as possible. So I don't recommend people just release a whole album. I want them to release, singles from it first. And that because each thing that you do is going to give you more ability to promote that thing. If you just want opportunities to promote where you don't feel like you're promoting the same thing constantly.
Sure. Do you ask about their creative processes?
Definitely. I had somebody on that she does like music through artificial intelligence, which was pretty interesting. But of course, we're a business-related show, so it's a little less about the creative process, but that definitely comes up for sure.
Okay. Yeah, that's good perspective. Yeah, just curious. I was, it wasn't a great way to do it. I was kind of fishing for I talk about these things sometimes. Should I talk about them more? And
yeah,
I should listen to your podcast, see what kinds of things you talk about. But
well, I think it's where you want to go with your podcast. The Unstarving Artist, it could be a business related show, an income related show, or it could be just about making better music so you aren't, so you can make more money from it because you're creating quality.
Yeah, that's a nice suggestion for niching it a little further. It's what it has become is conversations with indie artists for indie artists to help them be better at all the things that help them make more music, which encompasses kind of a lot of things, right?
Right.
So I'm, obviously I want to always ask better questions, and topics are certainly they've been evolving as I learn from them. And sometimes somebody just mentions something at random, and I had never thought of, so we'll dig into that. But yeah, that's a good suggestion.
Yep, that's what's fun about podcasts. It's wherever the conversation takes you.
Mm-hmm. So Bree, you so kindly are including me among your partner affiliates for the Profitable Musician Summit. And for anybody who has no idea what I'm talking about, that means with last year, Bree lets me be someone who puts links to, provides information about the Profitable Summit 2019, Profitable Musician Summit 2019 on my website, and talk about it here on the podcast. And if you guys check it out and decide to sign up and make purchases of certain types, and in this case, I guess just keeping it simple, enroll in the paid version of the summit, that Bree pays me a small commission, which is really nice, helps support the podcast. And so yeah, I appreciate you including me in that again. So there will of course be links to the summit and all the other cool stuff that Bree has been doing and continues to do, and her book in the show notes.
It's cool that you mentioned affiliates, because that's actually one of our speakers, Randy and Jason from Make Money with Music, like they have something like 300 and some odd like income streams that they've identified for musicians. And one of the ones that they talk about on the summit is about, being an affiliate for products and services that you like.
Yeah.
So, you guys come to the summit and you can learn about how to do this for all the things that you like, whether it's your favorite guitar, your favorite store, your favorite, coffee, like, whatever it is, you've got fans on your email list and they like to know what it is that you like what instruments you like to play and where you like to shop and stuff like that. And you can absolutely get some affiliate commissions for that.
Yeah, and I guess I would add to that, be sure to also tune into the topics that are related to building your email list. And if there are also topics on building your web traffic, because
there is. We have a search engine optimization for musicians talk on the first day with Greg Wilnaugh.
Nice.
And he's like a master at that. So, that's his whole other business is helping bigger businesses than musicians with this. So with the search engine optimization.
That's cool. Yeah, and for what it's worth, I think it's really important to note that signing up to be an affiliate for a number of things before you've built a substantial amount of quality content and some web traffic and some email subscribers, it is, I guess, a cart before the horse kind of thing, or a backwards way to approach it. So you definitely want to check out the things surrounding that. And wow, sounds like you've got them completely covered at the summit.
I feel like we do.
That's cool. I look forward to checking it out. Yeah, I look forward to checking it out. And thank you again so much for spending time with me today. And it's morning for both of us, so I guess I get to say have a wonderful Friday. You have pretty much most of it ahead of you.
Yay, I will.
All right, thanks, Bree. I'll talk to you very soon. Hey, thanks for listening. Question for you. Are you struggling to move your music journey forward? I can help. If not personally, then by referring you to the next best available resources. Schedule a free 15-minute call with me to find out if I can indeed help you. It's easy. Just visit unstarvingmusician.com/coaching to schedule your call today. Look for links to just about everything covered in this episode in the show notes at unstarvingmusician.com/podcast. This episode was powered by the Unstarving Musician's Guide to Getting Paid Gigs, how to get booked and paid what you're worth over and over again. It's available on paperback, Kindle, and ebooks just about everywhere you can find them. It's also available as a standalone podcast called the Unstarving Musician's Guide podcast. You can learn more about the book and companion podcast at unstarvingmusician.com/book. I'd love it if you picked up a copy and would love it even more if you left a review. With much gratitude, peace, love, and more cowbell.